All right, today I want to introduce you to trigonometry. And before we can actually get into that, first I need to show you how to name the sides of a right angle triangle correctly. And then we need to look at how we use SOH CAH TOA. So here we have a right angle triangle. Now we know it's a right angle triangle because of this little symbol here. This little symbol means that this angle is equal to 90 degrees, which makes it a right angle triangle. Now, this little symbol over here is a Greek letter called theta. All it really means is it's an unknown angle. So now when I go ahead and I name the sides of this triangle, I am looking at the perspective of that unknown angle. So I'm talking in relation to this angle. So when I use the word adjacent, when I use the word opposite, I'm talking from this perspective. But the hypotenuse stays the same regardless of which angle I'm looking at. So the hypotenuse, hopefully we know, is the longest side of any right angle triangle. It's directly opposite our right angle symbol here. It's always the longest side. So this is our hypotenuse here. So as I said before, with the other two words, it really does come down to whereabouts our unknown angle is, or unknown angle. So this word opposite means it's the side that is directly opposite this symbol here. So the side that's directly opposite is over here. The word adjacent is another word for next to. So the adjacent side is the one that is next to our Greek symbol here. So there we go. We've named all three sides. Our hypotenuse stays the same regardless of which angle we're referring to. And the opposite side is the one that's directly opposite our angle. And our adjacent side is the one that's directly next to our angle. So here in this picture, you'll notice that our Greek symbol is now in a different spot. The angle that we're looking at is now the one up here. So this means that our two words, adjacent and opposite, are going to be different in different locations. So our opposite side is the one directly opposite our angle, and our adjacent side is the one that is next to. So that's what it would look like if the angle that we're looking at is in this position. Now, there are three trigonometric ratios that we use for trigonometry. So those are sine, cosine, and tangent. But I just refer to them as sine, cos, and tan, just because it's faster. Now there's this weird little phrase called SOH CAH TOA that you will hear repeatedly during this unit, and it's one that you need to memorize because it helps you to find out which trigonometric ratio you're going to be using in the trig questions. So the SOH stands for sine is equal to opposite over the hypotenuse. CAH stands for cos is equal to adjacent over the hypotenuse, and TOA stands for tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. So here we have a triangle where we're given information on two of the sides. So it is telling us that the hypotenuse is equal to 25 centimeters and the opposite side is equal to 16 centimeters. Now using SOH CAH TOA, we can figure out whether this question is going to use sine, cos, or tan to solve the question. So the way we do that is, see this little side down here, our adjacent side doesn't actually have any information on it. It doesn't have a length, it doesn't have a letter on it, it has nothing. So we can't actually use this side here. So we're not going to be using our adjacent side. So now we take a look at our three at our little phrase, SOH CAH TOA, and whichever one we choose, whichever one we're going to be using, cannot involve the adjacent side. So we can cross out any that use the A. So CAH uses the A, which stands for the adjacent side, and TOA uses the A. So we're not going to be using either of those. So the one that we're going to be using for this question is SOH, which stands for sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Another way of looking at it would be just figuring out which one uses both the opposite and the hypotenuse. So let's look at opposite. So this one has an O for opposite and this one has an O for opposite. and this one has a h for the hypotenuse, and this one has a h for the hypotenuse. Well, which of the three uses both? It would be SOH. So because sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, we can now use the information that's in this particular question to write it out as a fraction and then go ahead and solve it. So in the place of the opposite, we'd put 16, and in the place of the hypotenuse, we'd put 25. And then from there, we could go ahead and solve it, but we're going to look at that next lesson. So in this particular question, we're using the hypotenuse and the adjacent side because we're given information on those two sides only. We have no information on the opposite side, so we can't pick one of the ratios that involves the letter O. So we can't be using this one, and we also can't be using this one. So what this means is we're going to be using CAH, which is cos. So now I would be able to use this information to fill in the blanks and then go ahead and solve the question. So because cos is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, using the numbers that are in this question, cos would be equal to 38 over 74. And then from there I could go ahead and solve it. And last example, here I have a picture that's using the opposite side as well as the adjacent side, but it's not using the hypotenuse. So whichever of the three ratios I want to pick, it can't involve the letter H. Alternatively, if I didn't want to do it that way, I can just pick one that uses both O and A. So again, that's this one here. It's going to be tan or TOA. So tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. I've just shortened it here so I don't have to keep writing out the long word, but you know what it stands for. So my opposite side is 99 and my adjacent side is 76. Now it doesn't matter that this is an improper fraction. That doesn't matter at all in trig. So there we go. We've learned how to name sides correctly based on whereabouts our angle is inside. And we've also looked at using SOH CAH TOA.